They believed humans were fragile. They believed humans were predictable. They believed humans could never understand restraint. They were wrong. Commander Elia Vance had kept a secret for years, one that could shake two civilizations if spoken aloud. The palace of Velith Prime floated above the planet like a living crystal, suspended by alien technology so old that even its creators barely understood it anymore. Soft blue light flowed through its transparent halls, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. To the Aurelians, emotion was something to be controlled, shaped, and hidden. To show it openly was considered weakness. Elia stood at the edge of the grand observation chamber, hands folded behind his back, posture calm and disciplined. From the outside, he looked like every other human officer, steady, focused, obedient. Inside, his heart was pounding. Across the chamber stood Princess Elira of the Aurelians, heir to one of the most powerful civilizations in the sector. Her presence changed the air itself. Elira's skin shimmered faintly like moonlight on glass, her features sharp yet graceful. Thin lines of light moved beneath her skin, reacting subtly to her thoughts. Her people communicated emotion through color, but royal training demanded suppression. Her eyes remained a neutral silver, perfect control. For 7 years, Elia had served as Earth's liaison to the Aurelian Empire. 7 years of negotiations, joint missions, political tension, and silent observation. 7 years of watching Elira command fleets, calm riots, and stand unshaken before threats that would terrify most leaders. And 7 years of loving her in silence. No human was supposed to feel this way about an alien royal. No officer was supposed to cross that line. Elia knew the risks. He had accepted them the moment he realized his feelings were no longer temporary. Today, everything was changing. The chamber doors sealed behind them with a soft hum. This meeting was private, requested by the princess herself. Outside, war was approaching. A hostile coalition known as the Next Dominion had begun absorbing systems near Aurelian space. Their fleets were vast, their technology brutal, and their philosophy simple: dominate or erase. The Aurelians needed allies. Humans needed time. Princess Elira turned to face Elia. Her movements were precise, controlled, every gesture trained from birth. "Commander Vance," she said calmly, "your people propose a joint defense strategy that contradicts Aurelian doctrine." Elia nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. Because your doctrine assumes the enemy will behave logically." A flicker, barely visible, rippled through her eyes. A faint trace of pale blue. Interest. "The next do not," Elia continued. "They adapt. They exploit hesitation. Humans survive because we expect chaos." Silence followed. Long and heavy. Finally, Elira stepped closer to the transparent wall overlooking the planet below. Entire cities glowed softly beneath them. Billions of lives. "You humans embrace uncertainty," she said. "It makes you dangerous, and difficult to trust." Elia allowed himself a small breath. "It also makes us loyal, once we choose a side." She studied him now, truly studied him. Her eyes shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. "For years," she said, "you have advised restraint when my council demanded force. You argued against your own commanders to protect Aurelian interests. Why?" The question struck deeper than any accusation. "Because I love you." Elia didn't answer immediately. "I believe survival requires cooperation," he said carefully. It was a safe answer. A diplomatic one. But Elira's gaze sharpened. "That is not the full truth." The room seemed to shrink. Aurelian senses were powerful. She had noticed things others missed. The pauses. The way Elia always positioned himself between danger and her. The way his voice changed when speaking to her directly. She took a step closer. "Humans," she said softly, "are said to feel deeply, even when they hide it." Elia's training screamed at him to remain silent. His instincts told him to walk away. His heart told him this moment would never come again. Outside the palace, warning sirens began to echo faintly across the city, long-range sensors detecting next fleet movement at the edge of the system. Time was running out. Elia met her gaze. I have followed every rule, he said quietly. I have respected every boundary. Her eyes flickered again, this time a brief swirl of soft gold before returning to silver. And yet, she asked. And yet, Elia continued, voice steady despite the storm inside him, there are truths that survive even silence. The sirens grew louder. Elira's expression remained composed, but the light beneath her skin pulsed faster now. You requested this meeting, he said. Before war. Before alliances are sealed. Before lives are lost. She didn't deny it. Elia took a single step forward. I needed you to know, he said, the words finally breaking free, that I have loved you in silence for years. The chamber went completely still. No alarms. No lights. No movement. Princess Elira froze. Her eyes exploded into color, gold, blue, violet, cycling uncontrollably, a phenomenon no one outside her species had ever witnessed. Royal conditioning shattered in an instant. Elias' breath caught. He had expected rejection. He had expected anger. He had not expected shock. Elira stared at him as if the universe itself had shifted beneath her feet. Commander Vance, she whispered, voice trembling, do you understand what you have done? I do, he replied. And I would do it again. A single tear, bright and luminous, escaped the corner of her eye. For the first time in recorded Aurelian history, a princess failed to hide her emotions. Then the palace shook violently. Red alert lights ignited across the chamber. A cold, mechanical voice echoed through the halls. Next Dominion fleet has entered system range. War had arrived. And her answer, whatever it would be, had just become far more dangerous. The palace alarms did not scream in panic. They rang with cold precision. Across Velith Prime, light shifted from soft blues to sharp crimson as defense grids activated. Orbital platforms rotated into firing position. Civilian traffic vanished from the skies within seconds. The Aurelians had trained for war their entire existence. Still, this war had arrived too fast. Princess Elira stood frozen for only a heartbeat after the alert. Then centuries of discipline snapped back into place. Her eyes forced themselves into controlled silver, though faint streaks of gold still trembled beneath the surface. Commander Vance, she said, voice firm but low, this conversation is unfinished. Elia nodded once. I understand. The chamber doors slid open as guards rushed in, their crystalline armor humming with energy. An aide announced that the next Dominion fleet had crossed the outer gravity threshold. Estimates showed hundreds of vessels, moving with frightening coordination. Too many. The princess turned sharply and began issuing orders. Her voice carried calm authority, directing fleets, activating planetary shields, rerouting power from non-essential districts. She was every bit the leader her people revered. Yet Elia noticed something no one else did. She positioned herself closer to him as they moved. In the command hall, massive holographic projections bloomed into the air. The next ships appeared like dark scars against the stars, angular and aggressive. Unlike Aurelian vessels, which curved and flowed like living things, Nex warships looked built to tear space apart. They are forming a layered assault, an Aurelian tactician reported. Primary wave will test shield harmonics. Secondary wave will target orbital platforms. They learn fast, Elia muttered. A council member turned sharply. You have faced them before. Not directly, Elia replied. But humans study patterns. And these patterns say they're looking for fear. Princess Elira met his eyes. Explain. They expect you to defend perfectly, he said. So they overload you. Humans don't fight perfectly. We fight creatively. Some of the council exchanged uneasy glances. Human creativity had always made them uncomfortable. Before more debate could rise, the first wave hit. Space lit up. Aurelian shields flared as Nex weapons struck with brutal force. Entire sections of the defense grid dimmed under the impact. Several orbital platforms vanished in silent explosions. Gasps rippled through the command hall. They're matching our frequencies, an officer said. Too quickly. They're learning from every hit, Elira said, jaw tightening. Elias' mind raced. "Your Highness," he said, stepping forward, "you need unpredictability. Give me temporary command of the Joint Task Group." Krellis, a senior counselor, snapped back instantly. "Unacceptable. A human commanding Aurelian forces." "They will break us within hours if we do nothing different," Elia interrupted, voice sharp. "The Nex don't understand improvisation. They see war as math. Humans see it as chaos." Silence fell. Princess Elira looked at the projections, then at the faces of her people, fear hidden behind composure. Finally, she made a decision that would be remembered forever. "Commander Vance," she said, "you have provisional authority. You will coordinate with our fleet leaders." The council froze. Elia bowed once. "I won't waste it." He moved fast. "Human ships," he ordered through the open channel, "scatter. No formations. No symmetry." Aurelian captains hesitated. "Trust him," Elira said firmly. Human vessels broke apart, flying in erratic arcs. Some cut engines completely, drifting. Others surged forward recklessly. Next targeting systems hesitated for a fraction of a second. That second mattered. "Now," Elia said, "Aurelian fleet, randomize shield frequencies every 10 seconds. Don't stabilize." "That violates safety thresholds," a captain protested. "Do it." They did. Nex weapons began missing. Not many, but enough. Elia continued issuing commands, layering unpredictability on top of alien precision. Human decoy drones launched, broadcasting false signatures. Aurelian fighters mimicked Nex movement patterns, confusing their coordination. For the first time, Nex ships hesitated. Princess Elira watched the battle unfold, eyes glowing faintly with restrained emotion. Humans were not stronger. They were not more advanced. They were clever. Then disaster struck. A Nex command vessel slipped through the chaos and fired a focus pulse directly at Velith Prime's main shield node. "Shield collapse in 30 seconds, an officer shouted. If that node fell, the planet would be exposed. Elira clenched her fists. "We cannot intercept in time." Elia stared at the projection. "Yes, we can," he said. "But it won't be clean." He opened a private channel to the nearest human cruiser. "Captain Hale," he said, "I need you to ram that node intercept line and overload your reactor." There was a pause. "That's a one-way move," Hale replied. "I know." Another pause. "For Earth," Hale said simply. The human cruiser accelerated, ignoring every warning, smashing into the next pulse just as it fired. The explosion tore a hole in space itself. The shield node survived. The command hall went silent. Aurelian eyes shifted, colors flashing uncontrollably. They had never seen a species choose sacrifice so willingly. Princess Elira felt something crack inside her chest. "They gave their lives," she whispered. Elia swallowed. "That's how humans protect what they believe in." The battle raged on, but momentum had shifted. Nex coordination faltered under constant unpredictability. Their hive logic struggled to adapt. Then a new signal appeared. "Massive energy buildup detected," an officer said. "Unknown weapon." Elias' blood ran cold. "They're deploying a command core." A massive Nex structure emerged, larger than any ship before it. "That's their brain," Elia said. "Destroy it, and the fleet falls apart." "But it's shielded beyond our capacity," Elira said. Elia turned to her. "Not if we hit it from the inside." Her eyes locked onto his. Gold flared again. "You are suggesting a boarding action," she said. "Yes." "With humans." "With me," Elia said quietly. The room seemed to stop breathing. "That vessel will be crawling with Nex warriors," she said. "You will not survive." Elia smiled faintly. "Humans survive impossible things." For a moment, Princess Elira forgot the war. Forgot the council. Forgot tradition. She saw only the man who had loved her in silence. The man who had changed the course of a battle with nothing but courage and imagination. If you go, she said softly, you may never return. Elia met her gaze. If I don't, neither of our worlds might. Her eyes shimmered violently now, color flooding freely. Then you will not go alone, she said. The council erupted in protest. I will authorize this mission, Elira declared, voice ringing. And I will stand as witness to human courage. Elia bowed, deeply this time. As shuttles prepared and the next command core loomed larger on the display, Elira stepped closer to him, lowering her voice so only he could hear. My answer, she whispered, trembling, is not finished either. Then the shuttles launched. And humanity carried war into the heart of the impossible. The next command core was not built like a ship. It was grown. As Elia's shuttle cut through the debris field, the massive structure filled the viewport, an enormous black lattice twisting around a glowing center, pulsing in perfect rhythm. Each pulse sent a wave through space itself, as if reality bent to its will. This thing thinks, one of the human marines muttered. Elia didn't correct him. The shuttle latched onto a jagged opening torn by earlier explosions. The moment the hatch opened, heat and vibration rushed in. The interior was alive, walls shifting, surfaces breathing, light crawling like veins. This is Command Core Alpha, Elia said calmly. Primary objective, disrupt coordination. Secondary objective, survive. A few nervous laughs followed. Humans often joked when fear peaked. They moved fast. Next defenders emerged almost instantly. Tall, segmented beings with glowing nodes embedded in their chests. They moved as one, weapons firing in synchronized patterns. Two synchronized. Break formation, Elia shouted. Individually. Humans scattered, rolling, climbing, firing from unexpected angles. Next targeting lagged for fractions of a second, just enough. One by one, the defenders fell, their coordination collapsing when cut off from the core's rhythm. See that? A marine yelled. They can't think alone. That's the point, Elia replied. Deeper inside, the structure grew more complex. The walls pulsed faster now, reacting to intrusion. Elia's suit sensors screamed warnings, neural interference, bioelectric surges, mental pressure. The necks were trying to think through them. One marine dropped to a knee, clutching his head. They're in my thoughts, he gasped. Elia grabbed him, pulling him back. Focus on noise. Memories. Anything messy. Humans were good at messy. Music began playing over squad comms. Random voices. Laughter. Old Earth songs. Memories layered over each other in chaotic bursts. The pressure eased. Next technology had never encountered a species that weaponized emotional disorder. They reached the core chamber. At the center floated a massive crystalline mass, light spiraling within it, data streaming faster than comprehension. This was not just a command unit. It was the next Dominion's mind made physical. And it noticed them. The air vibrated with a sound that wasn't sound, an overwhelming presence pushing against their thoughts. Anomaly detected. A voice echoed directly inside their minds. Elia felt pain spike behind his eyes, but he stood firm. You want to understand us, he said aloud. Here's your mistake. He activated the device strapped to his chest, a crude, human-built signal disruptor designed to flood neural networks with contradiction. It wasn't elegant. It was chaos. The core flared violently. Next defenders poured in, faster now, more desperate. Humans fought back-to-back, covering angles no algorithm would predict. Every movement was instinct, not calculation. Charges planted, someone shouted. The structure began to destabilize. Then something unexpected happened. The next spoke again, but this time, the voice changed. Query, why do you resist? Elia froze. Because we choose to, he said through gritted teeth. You are inferior in design. Maybe, Elia replied. But we're not designed. We're grown. The core pulsed erratically. Data streams shattered. The necks were feeling something new. Confusion. Back on Velith Prime, Princess Elira stood in the command hall, watching the battle unfold. The Nex fleet was losing cohesion. Ships hesitated. Formations broke. She saw human fighters dive into danger without waiting for orders, Aurelian vessels adjusting instinctively to follow them. For the first time, Aurelian commanders were reacting emotionally, and winning. Then a signal spike erupted from the next command core. Elias' biometrics flared dangerously. "He's still inside," an officer said. Elira's hands clenched. She had been trained her entire life to rule without attachment. And yet, inside the core chamber, explosions ripped through the structure. Humans began retreating toward the shuttle, one by one. Elias stayed behind. "Commander," someone shouted. "We're out of time." "Go!" Elia yelled. "I'll trigger the final collapse." The shuttle launched away as the core chamber cracked apart. Elia stood alone. The next voice returned, fractured now, unstable. "You disrupt order." "Yes," Elia whispered. "That's what we do." He triggered the overload. Light consumed everything. For a moment, silence ruled space. Then the next fleet began to fall apart. Ships drifted aimlessly. Weapons went dark. Coordination vanished. Aurelian and human forces surged forward, dismantling the remnants with precision and fury. The war, at least this battle, was over. But Elia Vance was gone. In the command hall, confirmation screens went dark. "No life signs," an officer said quietly. Princess Elira felt the world tilt. Something ancient and carefully locked inside her shattered completely. Her eyes ignited, not silver, not gold, but a brilliant cascade of color that rippled across her face. An Aurelian princess screamed. Not in fear. In grief. Silence filled the hall. No one spoke. No one dared. Moments later, a weak signal flickered. "Wait," someone said. Signal returning. A damaged shuttle drifted into view, barely intact. Inside, Elia lay unconscious, alive by the narrowest margin. Elira did not wait for permission. She ran. Later, in the medical chamber, she stood beside him, her composure gone, her hands trembling as she held his. "You defied an empire," she whispered. "You defied biology. You defied me." His eyes fluttered open slightly. "Did it work?" he murmured. She laughed through tears. "Yes," she said. "It worked." She leaned closer, voice shaking. "And my answer is no longer silence." Outside the chamber, the galaxy watched. For the first time, the Aurelians had witnessed humanity's greatest weapon. Not technology, not strength, but the courage to be human. Elia Vance survived. That single fact spread across Velith Prime faster than any official announcement. Human crews celebrated quietly. Aurelians did not celebrate at all, but their eyes betrayed them. Colors rippled where silver composure had once ruled. The next Dominion fleet lay broken, drifting like dead machines across space, its terrifying unity shattered by something it had never accounted for. A single human mind willing to choose chaos over order. In the medical wing, Elia slept beneath soft biolight, his body wrapped in layers of Aurelian healing fields. His injuries were severe: neural shock, internal fractures, cellular burns from energy exposure that should have killed him outright. Aurelian physicians stood in silent disbelief. "His biology adapted mid-collapse," one whispered. "It resisted." Princess Elira remained at his side. She had not left since he was brought in. Royal advisors protested. Council members demanded her presence. Tradition screamed at her to step away. She ignored them all. For the first time in her life, Elira chose not duty, but truth. When Elia finally woke fully, hours later, the first thing he saw was her eyes. They were no longer silver. They were alive. "You should not be here," he said weakly. "Neither should you," she replied softly. He tried to sit up. She placed a hand on his shoulder, firm yet gentle. "You changed everything," she said. "The council convenes even now. Some call you a hero. Others call you a destabilizing influence." "That sounds familiar," Elia said with a faint smile. Her lips trembled. "They fear what you represent." And what's that? She met his gaze fully. A species that refuses to stay in its place. The days that followed were tense. Aurelian society cracked under the weight of what they had witnessed. The next dominion, once considered unstoppable, had been undone not by superior technology, but by human unpredictability and emotional defiance. That scared them. Councillor Threxon, leader of the traditionalist faction, spoke openly. Humans are too volatile, he argued. They inspire instability. Even now, our citizens question doctrines that have guided us for millennia. They question because they saw courage, Princess Elira replied calmly. They saw recklessness, Threxon snapped. They saw a princess lose control. The chamber went still. Elira stood taller. Yes, she said. They did. Gasps rippled across the council. I lost control, she continued, voice steady, because control nearly destroyed us. We hid emotion so long we forgot its power. Humans did not. She turned to the assembled leaders. They fight not because they are ordered to, but because they choose to. That is why they endure. Threxon's eyes darkened. And your attachment to Commander Vance. Elira did not hesitate. I love him. The words echoed like thunder. Some council members recoiled. Others stared in stunned silence. Never before had an Aurelian royal spoken such words in open assembly. You endanger the throne, Threxon warned. Then the throne must learn, Elira replied. The vote that followed shattered precedent. By a narrow margin, the council approved a formal alliance with Earth, not as subordinates, not as overseers, but as equals. It came with conditions. Elia Vance would be recognized as a galactic protector, but he would never again command Aurelian forces directly. Princess Elira would remain heir, but her emotional transparency would be monitored. Progress, wrapped in caution. Elia learned of the decision later, when he was finally strong enough to stand beneath the open sky of Velith Prime. Elira joined him on the palace balcony, the city glowing below. They fear us, Elia said quietly. They fear you, she corrected. Humans remind them of what they buried. He turned to her. And you? She stepped closer. I am done burying myself. For a moment, there were no titles, no species, no history, just two beings standing at the edge of change. Their hands touched. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Far beyond Velith Prime, other civilizations watched the aftermath. Data spread quickly through galactic networks. The next dominion had fallen. Humans had led the impossible. Whispers followed. If they could do this, what else were they capable of? Earth was no longer seen as a fragile newcomer. It was seen as a wild card, a disruptor, a future force no one could afford to ignore. But consequences always followed revelation. Deep in uncharted space, remnants of the next dominion gathered around a fractured core, damaged, but not dead. They had learned something new. Humans were not weak. Humans were dangerous. And they would adapt. Back on Velith Prime, as night fell and luminescent skies shimmered overhead, Elira rested her head briefly against Elia's shoulder. For centuries, she said softly, we believed love made us vulnerable. Elia looked out at the stars. Love makes us brave, he replied. She smiled, openly, freely, and the galaxy shifted again. History rarely changes in a single moment. It shifts quietly, carried forward by choices most civilizations do not understand until it is too late. The weeks after the Battle of Velith Prime became known as the Human Awakening. Across the galaxy, observers replayed the recordings again and again. They saw human ships break formation on purpose. They saw soldiers joke while facing annihilation. They saw a commander walk willingly into the heart of an enemy that had erased entire civilizations, and survive. Most unsettling of all, they saw an Aurelian princess abandon centuries of restraint and choose truth. Earth's diplomatic channels flooded overnight. Requests. Warnings. Threats disguised as curiosity. Humanity had crossed an invisible line. On Velith Prime, Elia Vance stood before a gathering unlike any in recorded history. Representatives from dozens of species filled the Grand Convergence Hall. Some were ancient. Some were young. All were watching him carefully. Not with fear. With calculation. He wore no medals. No armor. Only the simple uniform of an Earth commander. Princess Elira stood beside him. Not behind, not above. Equal. The hall fell silent as she spoke. Today, she said, we mark the end of an illusion. The illusion that order alone ensures survival. Murmurs spread. The next Dominion believed perfection would protect them, she continued. They believed emotion was a flaw. Humanity proved otherwise. She turned toward Elia. They are not the strongest species. They are not the most advanced. But they are adaptive beyond prediction. Elia felt the weight of countless eyes. When he spoke, his voice was calm. Humans don't conquer because we want to rule, he said. We fight because we refuse to disappear quietly. A delegate from a crystalline species spoke sharply. And if your refusal destabilizes the galaxy? Elia met its gaze. Then the galaxy needs to learn flexibility. Silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, applause. Not loud. Not dramatic. But real. That day, the Aurelian Human Accord was signed. It redefined cooperation across known space. Not alliances based on hierarchy, but shared survival. Shared responsibility. Shared risk. Yet not everyone welcomed this future. Within the Aurelian Empire, unrest grew. Traditionalists whispered that Elira had compromised royal purity. That her emotions made her dangerous. Threxon's faction moved quietly. Too quietly. One night, as Velith Prime slept beneath its glowing skies, an emergency alert tore through the palace. Internal breach. Royal sector. Elia was already moving before the guards finished reporting. Years of instinct guided him through corridors he knew too well. He found Elira standing alone in the Hall of Lineage, ancient symbols glowing faintly around her. Threxon stood opposite her. This ends tonight, the counselor said coldly. You have weakened us. Elira stood firm. I have strengthened us. You chose a human over your people. I chose truth over fear. Threxon raised a device, an ancient Aurelian artifact capable of neural suppression. Elia stepped forward without thinking. The device activated. Pain exploded through his mind. Elira screamed his name. Something inside her snapped, not shattered, but ignited. Her eyes erupted into blinding light. Not chaotic. Not uncontrolled. Focused. The artifact cracked in Threxon's hand, overloaded by a surge of emotional resonance no Aurelian had ever released intentionally. He collapsed, unconscious. Guards rushed in moments later, stunned by what they saw. An Aurelian royal standing openly emotional. A human kneeling in pain, still smiling. Because she had chosen him. In the aftermath, Threxon was stripped of authority. His faction dissolved. The truth spread faster than suppression ever could. Emotion was not weakness. It was power, if mastered. Months passed. Reconstruction began across next-damaged systems. Humans were everywhere, not as conquerors, but as problem solvers. Improvising. Adapting. Teaching other species how to fight unpredictably. Children on distant worlds began playing games called human tactics. Earth's name became legend. And legends always grow. On a quiet evening beneath twin moons, Elia and Elira stood on the same balcony where everything had begun. The galaxy will never be the same, Elira said softly. Elia nodded. Neither will we. She turned to him, eyes warm and unhidden. I once asked you why humans embrace emotion, she said. Now I understand. And, he asked, because silence never saved anyone. She reached for his hand openly. No fear. No hesitation. Across the stars, something ancient stirred, not the Nex, but something older. Something watching humanity's rise with interest. The story was far from over. But one truth had been carved into galactic memory. When humanity speaks from the heart, even empires listen. And when humans choose to love, the universe learns to change.